And welcome to Real Dudes Podcast. I'm your host, Carrington, and today I've got Donovan.
Hello.
Donovan, how are you this morning? I know it's unusual, but we're recording in the morning.
Yeah, a little more tired than what I thought it would be. It's just been because it was like there's a storm last night and it still hasn't quite passed yet, so it's still super gray.
Yeah,
So I'm like, the sun isn't even out yet.
yeah, it's kind of rough this morning. Uh,
But I was excited once I got out. I was like, I'm ready to go.
yeah, same. So today we have a special guest. For all you video watchers, you guys can see who our guest is. But for all you audio listeners, we have a special guest, Rob Hawkins. He was the lead singer of a band called The Automatic, who was a huge part of our teenage years. That band was. Rob, how are you this morning?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
You are very welcome, Rob. I can't tell you how thankful we are to have you on the show. If you were to roll back the time like 10 years and tell us we would be here right now, we wouldn't believe it.
That is very sweet of you. Thank you for having me on. It's nice to be here because I'm not famous anymore. No one remembers. It's really cool to hear that. It's really nice.
Oh, you're very welcome. Before we get started, I just want to say real quick, like even our band, because we had a band between myself, my brother Donovan, and
Mhm.
our sister Brianna. We were called Cast Aside. It was based on that first line in the song
No,
Raoul.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah,
Oh my god. Wow. Oh my god. I'd never thought we'd kind of inspire something like
yeah. You
that.
did.
yeah,
we,
yeah,
Should have
we,
thought harder about the lyrics.
it was just one of those things. We were like, man, we were sitting around, what should we call ourselves? And then we were like, we love Automatic. Why not do Cast Aside? Because we love that song Raoul.
yeah. That was like,
It's a pretty good band name actually.
Thank you.
thank you. Well, I mean, you should be proud of yourself.
All right, yeah, I'll take credit for that.
So speaking of your band, like, how did you guys get started as a band? Like the Automatic. What are the humble beginnings for you guys?
So we went way back. So I knew one of our guitarists since I was 5. So we went to the same school together,
Hmm.
and just we're best friends and knocked around together and did tons of creative things. And then we met the drummer when we were both 11.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, we've known each other forever. We were friends first, and we used to do things like uh, record comedy shows on tape and things like that, and just general creative things and write things that we thought were really funny, but almost certainly were not. And then I think teenage years hit, and we were all rock music fans, and it was just like, right, we're going to be a band now. And I don't think any of us, well, yeah, James, the guitarist, plays guitar, so he was a guitarist. The Ewan, the drummer, uh, he'd played timpanis in the school orchestra, I think. So obviously he was going to be the drummer. So I was left with bass by default.
Okay.
But it's just that thing of we have basically zero musical talents at that point, but we're going to be a band. It's going to work, and teenage confidence saw us through.
Nice.
So how do you guys go from like just high school bands to actually performing in front of people and crowds and getting an album recorded and all that stuff? Like, how did you guys decide to make that jump personally?
So I think we kind of had a vague idea that a band should have a manager. So we sort of wrote to. So we grew up in a small town in South Wales called Cowbridge. That's just outside Cardiff, the capital. And so we wrote to a few people in Cardiff, and one replied. I think we'd put together a terrible demo, which we sent around, and which we recorded with pocket money or something like that. And uh, one guy responded and said, yeah, I'd like to let you guys use my studio and you can rehearse here for free, and we'll kind of go from there. So from that point on, we just spent every weekend going to Cardiff in someone's car full of sort of half broken equipment, and just rehearsed and wrote all the time. And that set the pattern for how we uh, how we wrote and how we operated from then on. Really, it was always going into a room and jamming, and then after a few hours, someone would say, "Hey, 40 minutes ago, you played something that was quite good, so let's go and revisit that." And so we always do things collectively. I think played in youth clubs
Hmm.
before then. We didn't really do a lot of gigs before we got signed, so we'd done a couple of things around South Wales, and I think there because we were very young, we were all under 18, I think, at the time
Hmm.
we
Okay.
got our manager. So just logistically, you can't go and play in a bar serving alcohol because we were children. So yeah, we played a few. There was an event called Teen Spirit on in a club called Barfly in Cardiff, and we played at a few of those, and that was specifically for under 18s bands. So there was a bit of cutting our teeth there, but really, I think we'd done maybe 30 gigs before we actually got signed. So we spent a year in our manager's studio writing and recording things, and towards the end of that, we came up with Monster, and we'd kind of given ourselves a gap year before going to university to try and do something with it. And our manager heard Monster, and we just kind of thought, it's kind of bit of a cheesy pop song, and had no idea what we had at all. And our manager did, and you could see his eyes go wide, and that got sent out to various record labels, and he put on a showcase again in Cardiff Barfly. I got so much history with that place; it doesn't exist anymore. But
Oh no!
Just it's sort of. Only a bad thing from a nostalgia point of view. It was a bit of a hole in the ground, really. But a lot of fun was had there. And yeah, so he put on this showcase, and I think 20 A&R guys said, "Yeah, we'll come along and have a look." And only one bothered to leave London, and he said on the night, "Yeah, I'd like to sign you guys." So we must have done something right.
Wow.
We got quite lucky quite quickly, and then it was all a big explosion from there. I think there was some discussion as to whether we take time to kind of mature as a band first, but the record label said, no, let's just go for it and try and make as much money out of you as we can. I understand their motivation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So is that like one of the first songs that you guys wrote initially, like Monster, or was it a couple of other ones that was on the Not Accepted Anywhere album?
Oh, that's good question. I think I honestly can't remember. I think we wrote a couple more, but I can't remember which ones they were. So yeah, I think I was 19 when I wrote that song. I say I wrote that song when we wrote that song, and it gave us an entire career. But it was so long ago. It was one of the first things we did, I'm just trying to remember, and no, it's not coming.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
It's all good.
I think it was all written around that sort of time, anyway.
Gotcha. So about how long after you guys got signed were you guys able to drop your first official album?
So we got signed at the end of 2005, sometime around the autumn of then, and it was June 2006, I think, that the first album came out. So it was pretty fast. So we were in studios pretty much immediately recording things all over the UK. Then we went out on tour with the Ordinary Boys and Hardfire and a few of the kind of big indie bands from that time. When did we do that? It's really hard to remember at this point. That's really bad. So remember the individual gigs, but the timeline's a bit fuzzy, to be honest. So it was all extremely fast.
So when Monster became a hit, because that's how we heard you guys, was Monster. What was that like to hear your song on the radio and all over the place, and just kind of go from these guys that started in this band many years ago? Now you guys are just starting to, all of a sudden, boom, there's popularity. Yeah,
it's really surreal. I remember the first time I heard someone else singing our song, and we'd just played a gig in Oxford. And we were in a hotel room, me and the drummer, and we had the window open, and we heard someone sing the chorus out the window, and I think our jaws just dropped. It was just an astonishing moment, like, holy hell, people have heard the song, people are singing it. This is a thing that's happening now. This is real. And then we can't avoid hearing it now. It comes up all the time. People text me when they hear it on the radio and things like that.
I was gonna say, do people still listen to it or hear it? Do you still hear people listening to it today?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, nice. There's usually a bit of a spike around Halloween.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah, it still gets a lot of airplay actually. So you get the royalty statements coming in every so often, and you get to see where all the plays have come from. And that's I mean, Monster makes more than everything else put together, which is no great surprise. But the it's sort of like 13 pence from Radio Venezuela or something like that, and then a bit more from over here. So it's kind of solid play all over the world, which is
that's really cool.
Yeah. People used to ask if I resented the song, and I guess I don't really feel it was particularly typical of what we did. I think it was a bit of an outlier, but it gave us an entire career, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna begrudge it.
Donovan and I used to work in an amusement park here in Ohio called Kings Island, and every October they have something called the Haunt, which is like their Halloween themed time of the year that they do Halloween stuff.
Mhm.
And when they would open at 7 p.m., they would open with Monster, and I'm like, and so every
Oh,
October we heard it.
yeah.
Yeah, remember that? Yeah, every October
I
we got to hear
forgot.
it. I'm like, man, this is so weird, but it was cool to hear like your guys' music, not just from us discovering you, but yeah, it was just. I mean, they still play it every October to this day. I
Wow.
think I can't remember. Don't.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
amazing.
know too many people who are still working there, so I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah,
it,
my last year was 2014. They were still playing it in
Right.
2014 though. So
yeah,
Yeah.
it was, it's kind of crazy because like hardly anybody knows like the band, so I felt like the most hipster of all hipsters at that time. Like, oh yeah, I know this band.
From the wave of UK indie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the song's always been more famous than the band.
Oh,
Yeah, we weren't getting recognised in the street too much, so a little bit.
Oh,
well,
that's
that's
cool.
good. Because
Just
it's a
enough to
shame
know
a
how
little
much
bit
it
because
was.
like after you guys you dropped Not Accepted Anywhere, it then went to This Is a Fix, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Hmm.
Yes. So
So
you had a new member. So how did that album all come together?
yeah, so I think we matured enormously. Well, kind of just as human beings, but musically, from a lot of touring. I think I might be exaggerating slightly, but we did something approaching 300 gigs in a year.
Wow.
Yeah, just an enormous amount. And at some point, you have to get back into a studio and start writing again. And it's the old truism that you have your entire life to write your first record and then 3 weeks to write the second or something.
Hmm.
But yeah, in the meantime, so Alex Penny, who was with us for the first album, left. We were really not getting along at that time.
Hmm.
So yeah, without going into that, it couldn't have continued with him.
Hmm.
But around the same time, there was a band called Your Codename Is Milo, who were kind of math rock, I guess. Probably math rock stuff from Newcastle. No, Paul will kill me. It's Sunderland. They just split up. So I think a few of them had kids, and it wasn't going to be a thing they could all commit to anymore. And again, our A&R guy knew Paul, and we'd played with him for an album of collaborations they did called Print Is Dead, and so we'd met before, and we knew we got along, and he just suggested, why don't you join them and carry on being a musician? And Paul said yes, because, food and money and things like that. but he came down to jam with us, and it all went pretty well, and so he moved down almost immediately, and he's a fantastic musician, and an excellent singer as well. I used to struggle to sing. I just kind of burnt my throat out and didn't really know what I was doing. So I was quite glad to have someone else to put a bit of the weight onto there, which is nice. But yeah, he's always full of ideas, and it worked in a really constructive way. So he'd have a whole bunch of ideas, but then they wouldn't necessarily go together. But then someone else would be able to piece them into one greater whole. And so at this point, we then had 4 people who were really committed to being good musicians, all pulling in more or less the same direction in a really creative, fertile way. And I think This Is a Fix was definitely a purple patch for us. I think that was the best record we did. Yeah, and we were experimenting a lot more then as well, swapping instruments and things like that.
Hmm.
There was some pressure to kind of repeat the trick of Monster. I think Steve McQueen was probably the closest we managed to that, which did quite well. But at the same time, the record label were starting to pull support a little bit. So it's kind of the way the industry works. They'll sign 20 bands and they'll continue to support one after the first record. I think we're a bit of a victim of that. I'm speculating slightly.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, that we didn't feel like they were pushing that record in the way that they should have done. And without that marketing, it's very hard to kind of keep the ball rolling.
That makes sense. And we were excited when that album came, because we were following you guys from when we first heard you. So when the music video dropped for Steve McQueen, we were pumped to hear the new album, and when it
Yeah.
finally came out, we're like, this is even better than the first one. They've grown. You can tell you guys grew a lot
Yeah.
in that time.
Hugely. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah. We filmed that video in the States, actually. It was in the Nevada desert. There's a huge airplane graveyard there.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, that's a colossal expense for that video that really didn't need to do. But hey, the record label's going to fly us to the States. I'm not going to say no.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, so that was a really cool thing to do.
Nice.
When-
Any like favorite tracks from the second album that you liked, or even have like to perform?
The one I always think back on is well, there's a couple. Magazines should have been a single.
Agreed. Yeah, that was our favorite song on the album.
Yeah, oh, amazing. So yeah, I would have loved for that to have been released. I think that was just the perfect intersection of us doing something interesting musically, but it also being catchy as hell. It was sort of peak automatic, and that would have been brilliant. I think I'm convinced that would have done really well, because no one can ever prove me wrong. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly. So I can hold on to that fiction as much as I like. I've got a real soft spot for Secret Police as well, just because I'm quite pleased with my lyrics on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think back on that as kind of how I'd like to carry on writing lyrics. That kind of imagery and using a certain framework to describe a thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna ask, like, where did that whole inspiration for Secret Police come from?
So it was just generically about the decline of a relationship. It wasn't particularly specific. Although at some point I had broken up with a girlfriend, so it was probably on my mind. But it was just with the imagery of a totalitarian state, and I was just feeling literary and very pleased with myself when I wrote that. So, but yeah, I think it just worked really well. It came together really nicely, and I was proud of that. Yeah, and it was a fun song.
Yeah. Finally, the mystery has been solved. All these years, I'm like, man, what is this song about?
I did try to build in a little bit of ambiguity quite often, because I quite like that people can put their own spin on lyrics. And it's often a shame when you find out what it's actually about and it's not what you thought. So it's better to have fun speculating.
It's true. It's true. It is a lot of fun to speculate.
Yeah.
And then we move from like, oops, this is a fix, and then we go on to tear the signs down.
Yeah.
So how did that all come about? Just a couple years later.
Yeah, it was a couple of years later, and we kind of knew it would probably be the last album. Or the last one before we had to go and get proper jobs, at least. So yeah, at that point we were out of our record deal, and so we self-funded that with a grant from the Welsh Assembly. They keen to go encourage Welsh artists. So I say self-funded. The Welsh government funded it. And we made it. And we didn't really have a lot of budget to market it and promote it. So we did tour it, but that was pretty much it. Which is a shame, because I think we were still slightly trying to sort of make lightning strike twice and find another monster or something like that. But again, we'd grown musically, and there were some really, really interesting ideas. It wasn't as together as This Is a Fix, I don't think, but there was some. We were trying things in a way that we hadn't been before. So it was a shame it was a shame not to get to see where that could go, where we could have gone as musicians. But I mean, even then, the days of bands getting 5 album deals to kind of mature and write prog were long over. So that's how it is. So I suppose that's my regrets about not being able to do it as much as anything else, is not being able to see where it would have gone next. That, and it just sucks, because making music gets into your blood, and I still have to do it now. I'm sitting in a room full of instruments, which there just aren't any directly behind me. So
Right. I was gonna ask about that, but later. But with
Sure.
that final album,
yeah.
what was it like to be able to go into a studio and independently produce it, as opposed to the previous album where it was produced by a label and all that fun stuff?
Yeah. It wasn't substantially different, to be honest.
Okay.
Because we were working with a local producer called Rich Jackson, who we'd worked with before for a few tracks. So we kind of knew what working with him was like. Actually, he'd recorded demos because he was had a relationship with our manager. So that wasn't anything new, and we recorded it in our manager's studio as well. So I suppose it was just lower rent than the previous recordings. But that said, I think we understood the process a lot more. We understood technically what goes into making an album, and the layering of music that goes into it as well. Because there's so much in a given track that people don't tune into. They'll hear sort of guitar, bass, drums, or whatever. But there's tons of sprinkles, and even things like the effect of adding a tambourine in the second verse to lift a track. We were much more acutely aware of that sort of thing, I think. Which is cool. It changes the way you listen to music, having gone through all that, because you can hear all the tricks, which is nice. Obviously, we like recording the first album. We had no idea what we were doing. But we were much better musicians, and I was a much better singer, and sort of happier and more confident with my voice as well. So it's a different experience in some respects. I always struggle at writing lyrics, though. That usually happens kind of, if not on the day, then close to it.
And what are some of your favorite tracks from that album as well?
I'm gonna get the track list up and have a look.
Well, while you're looking, what were some of your favorite songs personally to perform on stage that you just felt like no matter how the performance itself was going, you felt like this was the song that, no matter what, you guys killed it?
Light Entertainment was always pretty good, because it was just pretty heavy and you could dig into it. And it was in 7/8 time as well, which screws up the audience when they're trying to jump along to it. But we played with that a lot as well. We stripped it back, so it was meant to be just straight in, everything on full distortion. But we stripped it back to the first verse. We'd just do vocals and a couple of very lightly strummed guitar chords, and then hit in on the second verse. So it was really fun to sort of tease the audience with that, and just play with it a little bit. Right, let's have a look. Yeah, High Time, I think, was one of the most experimental tracks we've done. That was on Tear the Signs Down. I think that was a really good example of us as playing with what we could do and using studios to their full extent. I mean, I played the keys on that track, so I can't remember if anyone else swapped around, but it was in a period where we were just trying more and more things, and we were less tied to what we've been traditionally doing. So we were a band with, I think I did most of the singing throughout, but it got to kind of 60-40 me and Paul by that point.
Okay.
That was a condition of him joining. He said, I don't just want to be a second guitarist. I want to actually have a real creative impact and sing things like that. And we said, sure, because you're a really good singer. We'd be stupid not to. So that one I'm quite fond of. It's a strange album in some respects, because half the tracks are sort of trying to be pop songs, and then the other ones we were just going off on weird tangents. Like Race to the Heart of the Sun was another one as well, where
that was
strange ideas going on. Really fun to make. Possibly slightly self-indulgent.
Yes, glad you said that. That was my favorite track off that album.
Oh, cool.
Race to the Heart of the Sun. Like, if I want to blast something on a cool summer day or cool spring day, I'm like, Race to the Heart of the Sun, go.
Nice. You guys are doing horrendous things to my ego.
So musically, what were some of your personal inspirations to play music and just to continue on for as long as you did, and even today, if you have any, maybe
I've always been a rock guy. We were listening when we first got together in our teens. We were listening to a lot of At the Drive-In. So I still love that sound, actually, kind of manic and high energy, and like at least one of the amps is about to explode. And there was a band called Cooper Temple Claws, who are British. Reuben, another British band. They kind of made a little bit of an impact over here and then stopped, but they sort of proved to us that British bands could become big and become important things. And Muse as well. We were on board from the first album with them. But I'm quite lucky in terms of the musical education I've had. I started playing flute when I was a kid, and I just basically never quit. So I got a bit of a classical music education from that. My family were always very encouraging of that.
I was wondering how that came about. So you guys covered Gold Digger.
Gold
You played
Digger.
you played the flute on that. I'm
Played
like,
the flute. I was like, whoa, where did this come from?
yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I played flute since I was about 8. I got to grade 7, and only didn't do grade 8, which is where it tops out before you go and study it full time, because of school commitments. But it was a strange thing because I didn't really have any particular affinity with it. I just picked it when I was a kid, and it was just something I always did. But the musical education it gave me really rounded out the other side of things. So I think knowing how to read music is super, super valuable. I'd say that similarly, there's something missing from your musical education if that's all you know how to do. Because I think picking up a bass and putting on, so it was like Californication was a huge record for me. I learned to play bass partly from that. Baptism of Fire, trying to cover Flea. But,
yeah, really.
If you can pull it off, you're in good stead. So, but training your ear by listening to records and pulling out the bass line, learning to pull apart music is enormously valuable. And then, learning to be in a band is another thing entirely. I don't think you need to be a virtuoso to be a good member of a band. You have to serve the song. I've played with people who are technically brilliant guitarists, but they don't listen to what the other people are doing. They don't sort of follow tempos so much or remember structures of songs, and it's a different skill. And what am I listening to now? Still a lot of rock, still a lot of that jive, to be honest. But I've been listening to quite a lot of Aesop Rock. It's a rapper from New York.
Okay.
He's been around for quite a while. I think I saw this amazing chart on Reddit of the vocabulary of different rappers, and it's got sort of members of Wu-Tang and DMX right down the low end of the scale. And people complained about it because A$AP Rock wasn't on there, and the guy explained, well, his vocabulary is so large that he would have broken the scale.
Wow.
He added him to the chart. So he has to have a little squiggly line, A$AP Rock. So I guess that's kind of what I'm into with rap, is wordplay. And I'll put on Spotify and just kind of let the radios play, and anything that's sort of connected to that is something I'll usually enjoy. Because I didn't really grow up with it, and I think if you don't grow up with a certain kind of music, it's a bit harder to pass when you're older. But
yeah,
I just love I love the songcraft and the lyric crafting of really thoughtful rap. I saw a guy called Open Mike Eagle as well, playing Bristol, and rap's a really great genre for discovering new artists because they all collaborate with each other in a way that doesn't happen in rock. So if you get a rap album, there'll be like, I don't know, 4 collaborations or something. It's like, oh, I like these 3 guys. This is great. So I've got new material. It's a sort of self-propagating thing. Besides that, recently I've listened to loads of Mariachi El Bronx.
Yeah, I've seen them live. We've seen them live. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, they opened for
the Bronx a few times.
Really?
Yeah.
They opened for the Foo Fighters the first time we saw them, like back in 2010, I think.
Yeah, it's 2010. Yeah.
That was a gig.
And they were awesome. We were like, whoa, these guys are great. And we've been following them a little bit on and off since then. But yeah.
I remember when I first heard they were going to do that as well. I was like, this. I had no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
How on earth is this going to go? And it's music from a different continent to me as well. So, but yeah, I just loved it, and keep going back to it time and again. But yeah, recently I've been on a kick of that. So.
Nice.
Very nice. So I don't listen to the radio a whole lot. I play a lot of video games, and a lot of times that's how I get introduced to new music. And Rock Band was a huge part of that as well, because we were huge fans of Rock Band. The song Monster was in Lego Rock Band. I've always been curious, do the bands or artists, at least at your level, because I don't know about like the bigger ones, but as far as in your experience, what was it? Did you have any say in that coming to Rock Band? Did Harmonix come up and contact you guys? How did that work out?
Yeah, you always get a refusal with these kind of things. So yeah, we were asked, and if I remember that rightly, we did go to a launch event which was pretty cool. But I don't remember a great deal about it. But yeah, you always get asked before getting synced to something, especially like TV adverts as well. And I think we would have said a blanket no to anything political or anything like that. But we turned down a few things that we probably shouldn't have done because they were worth loads of money. But it just didn't want the association. So there was a bank that wanted to change the lyrics. Any lyrical change you have to ask permission as well. They wanted to change the lyrics to Monster and sing about mortgages or something like that. And that was, despite being offered really quite a lot of money, it was a really easy no.
Man.
No regrets.
So what was it? First of all, are you a fan of Rock Band? Have you played it at all?
Yeah, I have, and I really enjoyed it. My sister is an avid devotee of Rock Band. She basically learned to drum from that, although she doesn't really want to sit behind a real kit. She just wants to play more Rock Band.
Gotcha.
Understandable.
I mean, you can probably see it. This is my drum set here. It's an electric kit, and that's how I learned how to play drums, was through Rock Band as well.
I think it's the only one that really translates. It's really frustrating as someone who can actually play guitar and bass to not be able to play the Rock Band lines, like playing Hysteria by Muse on Expert, just watching me pull faces 'cause it's so difficult. But I can actually play it in real life. It's easier to play on an actual bass than in Rock Band.
It seems to be the mantra a little bit is it's harder to play the game or the song in Rock Band than it is in real life because there's just so much going on.
For sure, and that might be okay if it actually taught you to play the guitar, but it just makes you smash up the plastic thing.
So what was it like to be listed among a bunch of other artists in Rock Band, along with Monsters? Just what was that feeling like when you guys were when you finally saw it?
A little bit of a fraud in that situation. I think you'd have to be pretty full of yourself to not to. It's awesome to think of some of the lineups we've been on and see where some of those bands are now, and people who started out supporting us have gone on to bigger and better things, which is great. It's fantastic things we've been a part of. And with Monster, we've changed in a minor way. We've changed culture because What's That Coming Over the Hill is a Monster thing that gets used in the press and media to this day for various appalling things. But you can't really take it in as a single human being. The kind of magnitude of it, we're not built for that, I don't think. But yeah, it's an interesting observation though that, you know, if I feel like a fraud, then presumably half the other bands on those lists do too. And you realize there's no such thing as famous people. You know, they're just people who are famous.
Right.
It's it humanizes that world to be a part of it. Obviously.
So even though the Automatic isn't around anymore, are you still friends with those guys today? Or
Oh yeah. So I was best man for Ewan at his wedding a few years ago.
Nice.
I mean, there's still kind of some business stuff going on now and then, so we have to email each other. But yeah, we do chat occasionally, and we are still friends, which is really good.
That's really good.
So yeah, I mean, the reason we split up wasn't to do with falling out, which is now I think it's a good thing. I think at the time it was frustrating because you thought, well, if we didn't want to do this anymore, then it would kind of be all right that we were that this is coming to an end. But no, I was pretty cut up by it really. We still get on really well, and I haven't seen Paul in a long time, but I know if we met up, we could have a pint and it will be fine. There's no hard feelings. There's only good stuff, which is great.
Good. Because that was something I'd always wondered about you guys. Like, I don't know, I hope they still like each other.
Yeah. No, that's okay. We get along.
Good.
Three of us lived in a house together for a long time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that probably tested our relationship more than anything else. There's always a bad housemate, and it was me.
I was going to say, if you can survive living together, you guys can survive anything.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Yeah. It was easier on tour buses, though. I could only carry a finite amount of stuff with me, so I couldn't leave it all over the bus.
Gotcha. You couldn't wreck the tour bus like you could the apartment.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. Talking about discovering music through video games has reminded me of a stupid idea that I want to pull off at some point. I thought it'd be amazing to have a covers band just play music from Tony Hawk's soundtracks.
Oh yeah,
I really want to do this. I figure like that would be the best millennial wedding band ever.
Oh, I mean that's a huge part of our childhood as well. I mean the Tony Hawk soundtracks, all of them really.
Yeah, Tony Hawk's 2 in particular. I played it to death, so I know all those songs inside out. It's like, yeah, Anthrax and Public Enemy, rocking.
So personally, since we are a gaming channel, we should probably talk about some video games
Yeah.
at some point. What's your relationship with gaming? Because like I said, I remember a vlog when you guys were making the second album playing Rock Band, and I'm like that's what inspired me to even try and reach out to you in the first place.
I've always wanted to do more gaming than I've ended up actually doing, basically.
Gotcha.
So my first console was it was a Master System, a Sega Master System, but I don't know what that's called in the States.
It was a Sega Genesis.
Yeah, Genesis.
Okay. Oh, I thought that was the Mega Drive.
Maybe it was.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was the one before that. It was the 8-bit console.
Oh, before that. Okay.
Okay.
So we were young when that came out. Like we were kids,
Oh, yeah.
like little kids. Like I was maybe 4 or 5. I was.
Yeah.
So I
It
could have
wasn't
gotten it
modern
mixed up.
when I had one.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And that had Alex Kidd built
Mhm.
into it. So that was my first video gaming experience, and I can still probably write out the entire soundtrack to that right now if you give me a pen and paper. And then moving on, yeah. So then I had a Mega Drive, and then later on I had the N64, and that was
Mhm.
basically the GoldenEye machine,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
which was amazing, and that was the world of killing your friends for fun opening up to me. So that was really, really cool, and Perfect Dark as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some amazing memories of being at a friend's house in our teens, and what was the rocket launcher thing where you could slow down the rockets?
Oh.
Remember that? You could
I
then
think
just chase people just to torture them.
I only played Perfect Dark the campaign because I didn't play it until
Oh,
much
okay.
later in life, so I never got a
Yeah.
chance to play multiplayer.
Right. Okay.
But I know the weapon that you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah. That
'Cause-
one.
Yep,
Yeah.
that would be a thing.
Teenage boys being mean to each other.
Yeah.
Yep.
It never changes. So yeah, that was fantastic. And then after that, I kind of I think there's probably a bit of a gap until I ended up with an Xbox and what was I playing on that? Halo.
Mhm.
Lots of Halo with friends as well.
Classic.
I think my best video gaming memories have always been with other people.
Mhm.
So it's funny that people kind of a lot of the criticisms of gaming traditionally have been that it's antisocial, and it's never been true.
Yeah, exactly. I
Never
mean,
been true.
even to this day, I have friends that I made purely over the internet just from gaming, and when I tell people, when I like go visit them in real life, they're like, how did you meet them? Are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, yeah, they're great, don't worry, we're good friends.
That's awesome. Yeah, going and meeting strangers from the internet.
Yeah.
Upsetting your parents.
When we were emailing back and forth and trying to get the interview set up, you had mentioned also you were building a gaming PC.
Yes.
Is it up and running now?
I'm using it right now.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, I thought that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
It is up and running now with surprisingly, I don't want to jinx it, surprisingly few teething problems. So I stayed up really late last weekend putting it all together. And it's one of those things where no kind of individual part of it's that hard, but the cost of screwing it up is so high.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's sort of, it's like that scene in Indiana Jones where he's got to swap the weights out as I'm putting the processor into the slot.
You just hope and pray that it all works when you press the power button.
Yeah. Hoping not to hear a pop or smell burning silicon or something like that. But it was,
Right.
it's all worked. And there's been a couple of minor teething problems like getting Wi-Fi drivers and stuff like that. But actually, it's kind of worked. And so the only thing I've started playing so far is Black Mesa.
Yes.
Hey.
So I didn't PC game as a kid or growing up. So I played on that a bit at a friend's house. Well, Half-Life, and just absolutely loved it. Oh, I did actually. I tell you, I did play Half-Life on the Xbox later on, but that was with the orange box. Collection of games. Yeah, so Half-Life 2, and Portal, all fantastic. Loved all of them. So I'm playing Black Mesa for the nostalgia, really. and just to see how high I can crank my graphics card.
Yeah.
All the way, as it turns out, it's fine.
And no problems running Black Mesa all the way turned up all the way.
No, so far, unless there's more that I've missed. Yeah, yeah. It seems happy, and it's full of cool lights and stuff. So I'm happy.
Very nice. Do you have plans on playing any other games that you want to try and dig into now that you have a gaming PC?
Yeah, my manager at work sent me a big list that I haven't read yet, but I think he's quite keen to sherpa me back into the world of online gaming, which would be really nice. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got a couple of mates who play Counter-Strike quite regularly as well, so I just jump in with them and see what happens.
There you go. I mean, hey, gaming
Yeah.
PC is really perfect for socializing. Surprisingly.
Yeah. It's counterintuitive, but yeah. Yeah, I've kind of promised myself I'll play something that isn't an FPS as well. Yeah.
Well, we are a gaming channel. We have plenty of games that we have reviewed that you're interested in.
Yeah, I need to go back through your back catalog and have a listen.
And we mainly focus on independent video games, so it's trying to give voices to the little guys that maybe don't have somebody looking out for them, which is
Yeah.
so it's always really cool to talk with people, no matter their background. There was one time I spoke with a musician who did the music for like The Sims and SimCity,
Wow.
and I asked him, so what's your gaming background? He's like, I don't have it. I don't have anything. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So whether you play games or not, it doesn't matter, because I've talked to plenty of people that are involved with video games that don't play them, which is always, I mean, it is what it is, but it's always surprising to hear people's background.
Yeah.
I suppose you could see that perhaps as an advantage in that they have just zero preconceptions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You might get something quite original out of that. But I know what the music for The Sims is like, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, that was kind of a surreal moment just to be able to talk with him because of that background, because I played a bunch of The Sims and SimCity back in the day, and it was
Yeah.
just really cool to talk to him about that stuff too.
But you could do a whole episode about the things people did to their Sims.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I shouldn't go there.
Did you? So what does a retired rock star do when they're not in a band at the moment?
Well, yeah. I'm only retired from being in a rock band, and
Right.
not retired, unfortunately. Yeah, we would have had to have written a few more monsters to be able to stop working.
Gotcha.
I went to university after the band wound up, because I'd always been quite academic, and I had unfinished business. Basically, I needed to finish education in my own head, and I did computer science. And
cool.
I'm a programmer now. I'm a developer, which is super fun at the moment. I changed job last year, and I just adore the company I work for. It's so much fun, and it's a really fascinating group of people. I work with geniuses and people who've done amazing things with their lives. It's a really inspirational place to work. It's honestly given me a new lease on life in some respects. But yeah, I'm always doing something. I always have projects on the go. In the last year, I've learned to build guitar pedals. So getting
cool.
the soldering iron out and doing things like that and burning my fingers. But ending up with working guitar pedals. Ugly but working guitar pedals. Things like that. I've learned a couple of languages in the last 10 years as well. I love learning things and being exposed to new ideas and having hobbies. That keeps me sane. I don't relax by relaxing, and I don't do well just sitting in front of the TV. So my partner and I have to kind of negotiate when we're going to watch TV together. But we're managing that. That's going okay. Yeah, so I stay busy.
That's
which
good.
is good now. It's good when we're stuck indoors. It's hard on everyone, I think, but it's better when
Yeah.
there's something to do.
Yeah. I just lost my thought. But being a programmer, have you thought about making your own game?
Yeah, and that was something I had to go at in high school with a different group of friends. They had a piece of software called Games Factory they used, and I did some like basic side-scrolling stuff, super basic, but that was really, really fun. I've never particularly been drawn towards the idea of making a game, to be honest. I chose computer science. I mean, there were some mercenary reasons, like there's plenty of work in that field. That's not going to dry up anytime soon because everything is computers. But it's the problem-solving aspect of it, really, and the kind of intellectual challenge I was drawn to. Less so the end result. And I think the fact that it can, as I said, just everything is computers, so you can kind of work in any sector with computer science,
right?
To any other thing. So it's a pretty flexible degree. It was sort of meant to be a holding pattern, really, while I worked out what I wanted to do with my life, but I quite enjoy it. Luckily.
That's good.
Yeah.
So how do you keep the creative juices flowing? You say you have a bunch of hobbies. What are examples of some of those hobbies that help you keep those creative juices flowing?
Well, music's still a huge one. So I live in Bristol now, which is kind of the next city over from Cardiff, and since I've lived in Bristol, I've had piano lessons. So that's something that's just an instrument I've always wanted to be good at, but never given much time. I've always been able to kind of knock out a few chords, but I realized if I was going to progress properly, I needed a teacher. So that's been really fun, and that's opened up a discovery of classical music as well. It turns out Chopin's amazing.
Oh yeah.
New, So I'm kind of not answering your question at all. So music's a thing that just kind of leaks out of me, and I always have ideas, and turning them into fully fledged songs is a different story, but I'll always be doing that. And finding the time, honestly, is the hard thing. I kind of set myself a challenge at the beginning of this year to try to make an album, at least with demos, by the end of the year. I probably won't do that. I just don't think there's the hours in the day, but I should have a chunk of songs, which would be nice. And then other than that, just any little thing that I feel like trying. Like I was just learning to work leather for the hell of it. So I made a belt, and I've been carving a design into that.
Oh, cool.
Just anything and everything. Making the guitar pedals is another thing. I've started a lot of stories as well. I enjoy words and writing. I haven't finished many of them, but it's things like that that just keep me going. A lot of these things I don't really do for the end result, to be honest. I just do it to keep myself busy because I enjoy the process. I should try and finish something, though. That's quite a big weakness.
I saw on your Twitter your parody of The Raven that you wrote.
Oh, amazing.
I thought that was kind of fun. I'm like, how did he write that? That's really cool.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I just I went through The Raven and used that as a scaffold and started changing more and more of it. So I mean, like half of it's still Edgar Allan Poe. So
right.
Maybe take partial credit.
Fair enough. I just thought that was really cool. I'm like, because you're not super active on Twitter. I've noticed like recently since the quarantine, you've been a bit more active though. But so I'm like, I wonder what he's been up to. And then when you dropped that, I'm like, that's really cool. And your writing is very unique and it's just creative. It's just something that's just like, wow, I would have never thought to have done something like that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear. Twitter, I used to use Twitter quite a lot, but this was like 10 years ago, and I just sort of fell off it, and I need to get back into it. I think it's slightly brutal, but it's quite a good way of engaging with the world, I think. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what your politics are, but I guess you'd agree that things are pretty crazy everywhere. So it's a really good way to stay abreast of that as well. I've been much more interested, especially since the election here in December, which didn't go the way I would have liked.
Sorry to hear that.
So at that point, I kind of made a promise to myself that I would try to get more involved and be more active in that sphere. I need to use Twitter more. Which is something I haven't heard anyone else say. So it's a high of scum and villainy.
Yeah, really.
No, I'm mostly a lurker on Reddit though, which is kind of good for all the hobbies and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it really is
for sure.
Yeah. Mindless entertainment too. So
I would say Reddit is something that I find hard to get into, but I try. But I don't know. It's easy for me to lurk, but not engage on Reddit for sure.
Right. Yeah. You have to check yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Because otherwise you'll end up in a futile argument that will just leave everyone feeling worse and achieve nothing.
Yeah.
Fun though.
Yeah, fun. Oh man.
Now, do you find yourself playing any of your old songs from the automatic? Just maybe when you're chilling or feel like you got to get something out?
I haven't done that in a long time actually. I think I did. done something. I can still just about remember Raoul, so I think I've done
Okay.
I do that occasionally, but really occasionally, I work on new stuff or ideas I've got, or covers, just to try and expand what I can do.
Sure.
'Cause I was a bassist in the automatic, and I've always been able to like play a few chords on the guitar, but I wasn't really a guitarist. But since that ended, I picked up the guitar a lot more because obviously with an acoustic, that's all you need, so I can just have one lying in the corner of the room and go to it without any extra fuss. Whereas it's not a lot more effort to go and plug a bass into an amp, but it's just enough to put you off.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I've become much more of a guitarist. There's a few massive things that I haven't mentioned in this interview that are like I can't believe. So we've already talked about music, but my favorite band is Clutch.
Okay, I can see you wearing their shirt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This is one of 3.
Okay.
I absolutely adore Clutch. There's so much fun and such amazing energy. But I learned to play the Regulator by them, which has got a nice fingerpick guitar at the beginning. So that was kind of a fun way to push me into something else. So that's something I play quite a lot at the moment. But yeah, generally new stuff. I don't tend to look back very much. I probably should, so I don't have to, Google the track list to my own albums.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all good. I mean, I was just curious if maybe, I don't know, just for nostalgic reasons, you just kind of just want to be like, maybe I should just sit down and play for a second.
I probably will actually after this. I'll probably have a think and see if I can just remember anything.
Fair enough.
Partly my voice is a bit rusty these days as well.
Do your workmates know that you were in a band? Do they listen to the song back in the day, I guess?
It's a good thing to put on your resume.
Oh, I'm sure. That might help a little bit.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they do know, and it's kind of it's a novelty for a bit, and by and large, it just kind of stops being interesting. After
Fair enough. Yeah.
Which is good. I don't lead with it though. I don't.
Sure.
I'm happy to talk about it, but I always want to be judged on me first.
I know that's completely understandable.
Yeah. You can be sure if you haven't mentioned it, and then you do mention it, and someone changes. It's quite a good litmus test of a person's character.
True.
Yeah, they all know. I keep trying to have a jam with a few of my colleagues, and they just can't get it together.
Gotcha.
Especially not now.
Especially right now, yeah.
Putting it off, and now we're all stuck indoors. So yeah.
That's all I have, Donovan. Unless you have more questions you want to ask.
No, none have come to mind. I've pretty exhausted my questions.
Cool.
We've gone through a lot of stuff, actually.
Rob, is there anything else you want to say or mention?
So yeah, I mean, I can't believe I didn't mention it, but I think Skyrim was probably the game that had.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's
impact on me. Full stop. I basically lived in Tamriel when I was finishing my degree. It was work Skyrim.
I know exactly that feeling because we were in college when that game came out, and that's all it was college. Go to college, do schoolwork, and play Skyrim as much as possible.
Yep.
I did. I very much did.
Hey. And any project?
I haven't seen in a while.
Okay.
I'll say on Steam now they have an HD version of it too. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing to get in right now, but it's on there and I have it. And it looks gorgeous. It looks even better now.
Really good.
Yeah.
I'd never see my girlfriend again.
Oh dear. But yeah. So do you have any projects currently going on? You had mentioned that you're kind of sort of getting through another album, trying to get some songs put together.
Yeah. A few people have come up on Facebook and said, do you want to do a musical collaboration? I've said yes to all of them. And then I decided to replace the PC I used to make music with newer ones.
Gotcha.
I've got to get that back up to speed and get the software on there and find a few plugins and stuff like that pretty quickly. And start recording things. So yeah, someone wants a bass line, someone wants a guest vocal, that kind of thing. It's just great to still be asked and be able to collaborate with people like that. And I think especially now, just staying busy is the important thing.
Yeah.
Not thinking about things too much.
Yeah, for sure.
If someone, because of this interview, were to approach you, say, "Hey, would you like to do the music for our game?" Would you say yes?
Yeah, I would. I think there's a bit of a leap between saying to friends,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, sure, I'll do this for you, and then going up to something where someone might have deadlines.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'd love to do it. I really would. I'd love to do that, or work on a soundtrack for a film or something like that. I think what an incredible opportunity that would be. Because with film and games, I suppose it sets the emotional context for what you're doing.
Oh yeah.
So it's a different way of thinking about music and a different way of writing, and potentially a totally different style for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would love to. I'd think about it very hard. The only issue would be whether I could honestly commit the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can say that, when it comes to games, there's this one game in particular called Celeste. It's newer. It's a 2D platformer. And the game itself deals with like mental health and depression and things like that.
Right.
Even though the story is that good, it's the music that really carries it to the next level. So yeah, music for sure has a huge impact on how good a game can be.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. At the very least, it tells you when a boss battle's coming up.
Oh yeah, for sure. And when you need to save.
You got the save point, you got the last minute health,
Yeah.
or like the potions and stuff, and then the musical cue.
Yeah, every time.
Well, Rob, it's been a pleasure to speaking with you for the past hour or so, and
It's flown by.
it has really
Yeah,
flown
it has
by.
flown by.
I can't thank you enough for coming on.
My
Yeah,
pleasure,
for
honestly.
sure.
Thank you for asking me.
You're very welcome. For anyone out there listening that wants to reach out to you, how can they find you on the internet?
I'll try and look at Twitter a bit more.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I am Rob_Hawkins on Twitter, and that's probably the best way of getting in touch.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you heard it here, folks. Rob, is there anything else you'd like to mention before we close out?
Just hope all your listeners are keeping safe and well and staying busy, and reach out to each other, because people don't always say when they're feeling bad.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, mental health is the cornerstone of your well-being, so look after yourselves.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, especially in these current times. And I think those words ring true no matter what you're going through, whether a pandemic or not.
True.
Well, that's all
right.
we have for today. And as always, have a rad day.